This series of videos is called Zen for Absolute Beginners. And we're actually at a very advanced part of these teachings. There isn't particularly anything hard to understand about them. These particular verses that we're looking at now are quite different in tone to the ones that we've been looking at until recently. They're concerned with rules of behaviour. It's very easy to be impatient with rules, especially since they seem to be directed towards somebody, a renunciate, somebody who's given up everything, living in India, where even to this day it's possible to inhabit cemeteries and possibly forests and who knows, open spaces. So it's easy to dismiss these rules as somehow irrelevant. So why am I describing them as a very advanced part of spiritual practice? Well, these rules are about distancing ourselves from the world. They're about lessening our dependence on the world. They're about dissolving our relationship with the world. And the world here is the world of ordinary or conventional understanding. This is what most of these verses have been about until now, where we really have to put into practice. Once we have the understanding, we have to start putting it into practice. Now, the series was called Zen for Absolute Beginners for other reasons. Because there's no point, because you cannot bring any conceptual understanding to these teachings. What you need to bring is what is traditionally called beginner's mind. Because it's not about coming to some kind of conceptual understanding. It's about coming back to the awareness that underpins all understanding. And this awareness could be called the Absolute. And this is what we always begin with. In this way, the Enlightenment practitioner is an absolute beginner. We always begin with the Absolute. But there's often something that gets in the way. And that's what these rules are looking at. What gets in the way, ultimately, is what I've referred to in the past as our fundamental tone, our fundamental mood tone. And it's one that these rules can bring into sharp focus. Because we're taking away all our emotional supports, all our emotional crutches, and you're left with this tone which is possibly quite unpleasant, to say the least, and more than likely downright painful. Painful to the point of despair and desolation. Perhaps this is what the Christians call the dark night of the soul, the dark night of the soul. And I suspect this is kind of what I'm touching at the moment. This fundamental tone seems to be relatively predominant. And I've been wondering about this because I think I might have a tendency to give myself a hard time. And I got a letter from my local general practitioner, my local doctor, saying that I should go for an asthma review. I don't have a severe problem with asthma. In fact, there are times I've wondered if I've got asthma at all, but they seem to think I do at the doctor's practice. Although I haven't had to use an inhaler for many years. But even if as I speak now, I can feel things are a bit tight in the chest. And last time I went for an asthma review, I was asked if I have a problem with depression. And I wondered about that. The thing is, in the past I've used an inhaler. I've not had to use it for quite a few years. There's times I've really needed it. And I've been so grateful for it. If you're an asthmatic, you'll know what I mean. I was sometimes concerned at what kind of research and development they did to develop this inhaler, a salbutamol inhaler. Did the experiment on animals and all the rest of it. But at the time, such thoughts, you brush them aside. You just need a puff of this stuff so you can start breathing again. So I would use it if I had to. But is there such a thing as an asthmatic personality? And is it prone to depression? And if it's prone to depression, is it possible to use medication in the same way you use the salbutamol inhaler to free up the physical side of things? Is it a coincidence that I'm feeling relatively tight in my chest at the same time I'm talking about this dark night of the soul? So I don't know. Should I mention to the nurse this time, well, yes, maybe I do have a bit of depression and I could do with some medication. Part of me holds back from this. Is this pride? I don't know. I don't know. But it's certainly something that has to be faced at some level. This fundamental tone. That these rules which deprive us of all our crutches are exposing. So this verse which I was going to look at today was about food. The previous verse was about food as well, because this is the one thing which we cannot cut ourselves off from. Traditionally, the renunciate, they've given up everything, but they still need to interact with the world to get their food, because it's very hard to be self-sufficient and to grow your own. In fact, you might as well become a farmer then, and everything that entails, and you're no longer a renunciate. So you cannot divorce yourself entirely from the world. You still need some interaction. And the thing about the food is, it comes from people. And there are lots of contexts in which you're going to be given food. But let's leave it for now and I'll look at these, and I'll look at these verses in the next video.